She wanted what? There was a pregnant pause, and the silence was so loud you could practically see a tumbleweed roll between Eren and Ignet the hottie. Kubaru, on the other hand, wonders how does she know Eren? Moreover, she also wants to recruit him to the Order. Ignet just stares at Eren before our hero can answer. He refused. Lulu and Kubaru both turned to Eren in shock, but Ignet was just smiling and commented how he gave such a swift rejection. So she asked him what part of her offer he did not like, but our hero reasons out that it's not exactly his issue. But before he can go on, Ignet tries to sell him on the Holy Kingdom, adding that it's actually a pretty good place. The lady captain attempted to list a few of its perks, but unfortunately, she didn't sound too convincing. So there are things Ignet is actually not good at least she's trying. But before she could list any merits, Eren once again flat out refused and told Ignet he won't be joining the Knight's Order, with our MC still in the sword stance. At this, Ignet glared at Eren, catching our hero off guard as he felt a particular force emanating from the lady captain. Lulu quickly pointed out that Ignet was doing the same thing Jirog did. She was taking a look inside our hero, but it was over in a flash before anyone could do anything. And Ignet just sighed deeply. After all, the rumors she heard were true about a young man with a lump of iron in his heart. Moreover, this lump of iron is coveted by many since it was no ordinary iron but a refined one that even Vulcanus was rearing to get his hands on it. Admittedly, even Ignet herself said that she'd also want that, but now that she's seen our hero up close, it looks like Eren still hasn't managed to become its owner. Eren knew what she said was true. He was offended by it, but what could he do? Before he could reply, Ignet once again appointed him as a Knight of the Black Knight's Order, which was mandatory this time. Even Eren became more pressured and agitated as he heard what Ignet said, but still, he refused. This time, Ignet became more forceful, highlighting the fact that he has no choice but to join unless he risks getting swept away by this power, which would cause chaos in the whole continent. And that's when our resident sorcery mascot jumped to his rescue. Lulu hissed at the lady captain, defending Eren's intention of not joining the Order. The cat's got more spunk than we all thought. Eren's sorcerer teacher said that our hero gets stronger by the day and won't get swept away by a power like that. Turning her attention to Lulu, Ignet's mood suddenly changes. Impressed by Lulu's attitude, the lady captain said that she likes the talking cat, which made Lulu hide behind one of Eren's legs. Despite being scared, Lulu firmly told Ignet they should just return where they came from while Eren quietly answered that he was doing his best. But no, Ignet can't believe his choice, and our hero only replies that he'll prove it to her, that he can control the lump of iron in his heart. The lady captain questions how he will manage to do so, to which Eren relates what happened with Vice Captain Hilburnett at the Hail Kingdom. Remember him, guys? The hunk of black mane with golden armor a couple of chapters ago. Yeah, anyway, back to the story. Eren recalled that even though he wasn't aware of it then, the lump of iron in his heart started manifesting when Hilburnett emitted a fierce fighting spirit, similar to a demon's. In line with this, our hero told Ignet that if she could cast the same type of fighting spirit that Hilburnett did, he would prove to her that he won't be swept away easily by the power in him. In other words, Eren wants to duke it out with the Ignet. At least, that's what she understood based on what Eren said. As if to confirm things, our hero announcing his title as part of the 27th cohort of Chronos Swordsmanship Academy, formally declared that he wants to duel with Countess Ignet Crescentia. Once again, a deafening silence ensued, only to be broken by Lulu's cheering for our hero. At the same time, Kubaru quickly assessed that the lady captain definitely had a fighting spirit on par with demons. After all, she had slain so many of them. But Kubaru never voiced out his concern that this may be too much for Eren to handle, also wondering if our hero has some ace up his sleeve. Eren stands on guard, anxious and thinking he's been feeling strange for a while now. He can't explain why he's so angry. He tried to rationalize it, thinking that maybe it was because he knew Ignet's past with Ilia, but then again, it was not that. It makes him even more frustrated since he doesn't understand his feelings at the moment and can only clench his sword tighter. Meanwhile, Ignet is chill as ever, only commenting that once she emits her fighting spirit, that will signal the beginning of the fight. Eren agreed, and as soon as he did, Ignet emitted a powerful aura and drew her sword at the same time. And then, her aura got even more powerful that it was almost sinister as she extended it to our hero. This triggered the giant old man oversoul on our hero's part, and seeing it before her eyes, Ignet thought that she was right. Eren couldn't control the power when suddenly it all cleared out as Eren closed his eyes. Now meditating, Eren calmed himself, thinking he should use this emotion on something else. In his mind, he's busy molding the lump of iron in his heart while using the flame within him. He noticed that the angrier he got, the more the flame grew, and as he continued to hammer the lump of iron, the flame grew incredibly. The same flame now surrounds Aaron's whole body, but he's too busy looking at the object right in front of him. There were radical changes in the lump of iron, so our hero thought he could change it this time as he grabbed the handle. As soon as he did, he felt a surge of power that electrified his whole body, and in the real world, our hero was growing bright by the said power, preparing to execute the vertical slash. Aaron shouts as he thinks to himself that he can overcome this. Meanwhile, the rest of the spectators couldn't believe what was happening in front of their eyes, except for Ignet, who's now smiling at our hero's progress. And then, Aaron was back to his usual self again. But this time, he was more determined than ever as he told Ignet that he was about to attack. Aaron sprinted toward Ignet with so much speed, but the lady captain matched our hero's effort just the same. It was all a blur of clothes until Aaron took the first swing and slashed the ground as Ignet jumped to the side to evade his attack. Even Aaron admits that the lady boss is fast, while she only looks at him unfazed. Our hero dashed towards her again, leaping from one point to the next as he delivered one slash after another, while Ignet continued to back away from his attacks. Jurag only smiled a little, seeing that his captain was starting to fight back while Kubaru and Lulu looked on in shock. I mean, your mama just blew Aaron's Dragon Slayer-like sword away with one hand and a lot of force to boot. But Ignet's attacks didn't stop there. She took a swing at Aaron again, and this time, the impact was so intense that the ground started to cave from the force. Thankfully, Aaron managed to block it, but the next attack was an explosive force, literally, that blasted our hero away. As he was thrown from the impact, Aaron thought he needed to find his footing quickly, struggling heavily when he heard a voice speaking from behind him, asking if he had the luxury to look away in the middle of the duel. And yes, that voice belongs to Ignet, who was instantly behind our hero after delivering an intense attack. With one swing, the lady captain disarmed Aaron, his sword flying out of reach, but he managed to hold on to the handle at the last second. Gritting his teeth, Aaron shouted as he swung at Ignet with just one hand. Yem even raised his sword in the defensive position when the lady boss told him not to get cocky, as she raised her fist and punched him in the gut. Aaron flew in the opposite direction as Kubaru and Lulu called out to him in earnest. Meanwhile, Ignet just looks on, her face never changing, as Jurag asks her if she will take Aaron with them. But the lady captain just told him that he has no intention of going back on her words. After all, Aaron did prove himself like he said he would. Besides, the lady captain found him interesting since our hero really did try to beat Ignet and gave his all. That's one heck of a boss-level fight, and the second time we see Aaron get humbled aside from his battle with Sir Ian. Later, Aaron woke up to the sound of his voice being called out, to which he instantly got up. This shocked Kubaru and Lulu, watching him rest as the sorcerer cat asked if he was okay. Our hero asked where they were when he let out a loud gasp, seeing that Ignet was sitting right by his bedside, watching him silently. Now that Aaron was awake, the lady boss reached out to Aaron, telling him they should finish the conversation now that he was up. As she moved closer, Aaron flinched in response, and boy, did he get the shock of his life with what she did next. He raised his shirt, exposing his stomach. Aaron and Lulu panicked, with the sorcerer cat even calling Ignet a perverted witch, but the lady boss only told the sorcerer cat to watch his language while Ignet assessed the large bruise on Aaron's stomach. Lulu looks on with curious eyes as Ignet uses sorcery to heal Aaron's wound until it begins to fade. Kubaru, who was also watching all this time, quickly identified it as holy magic. After healing him, she assured Aaron that he wouldn't have trouble moving, but our hero was just quiet. When, out of the blue, Aaron asks Ignet what kind of sword she uses, and at the same time, addresses her as captain. Ignet could only smile at the odd question thrown her way and, in return, confirmed if our hero was a trainee of Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy. When Aaron affirmed, Ignet understood it must be something that head swordmaster Ian, who Ignet called an old geezer, had said. Moreover, the lady captain tells Aaron that this may be too deep for him to understand now, but she tells him anyway. The sword that Ignet uses now is the blade that will make her king. Kubaru reacted strongly upon hearing this, asking Ignet if she would start a rebellion, but the other only told him not to get ahead of himself. And before she answers her question, Kubaru should hand over the pouch in his pocket first, saying she will purify it. As soon as she got the pendant from Kubaru, Edenet told the elementalist orc that they were at a period of peace right now only because the kingdom Edenet serves prohibits war among other kingdoms. But many centuries ago, and maybe even way before that, war only happened because an archdemon ran amok. As Edenet purified the pendant, she also told them the world wasn't all that peaceful. She doesn't know how to save everyone's suffering. Edenet also admits that she doesn't know how to control the wicked artifacts that are finding their way into their world and returns the pendant to Kubaru as soon as she purifies it. These all started when she first thought how nice it would be to create a free country in their world using her own hands. It looked like Kubaru was about to say something, so Edenet assured them that she had no plans to incite a rebellion and would achieve her wish peacefully. As she walked past Lulu, the lady captain told the cat that Lulu needed to work even harder to maintain the relationships that it has right now, although it's good to enjoy the happy times. Edenet stood before the large window and asked Aaron who he believed in. Before he could answer fully, Edenet said that she believes in herself and that her conviction is solid, which is why she could walk her own path without any doubt. Aaron could only stare at her in surprise, and she jumped on the windowsill. Edenet told Aaron that she would make him the same offer once they meet again someday, but this time, not to the steel in his heart, but to Aaron. The lady captain jumped as soon as she said this, parkering out of the room and shocking both Kubaru and Lulu, who quickly looked down to see her. But Aaron spoke up for the first time after listening to her this whole time. He recalled that when Edenet killed Charlotte and Victor, he felt that what she did was right. And for him, it seemed the right thing to do, especially since he felt the conviction from every act she did. All the while, he had been hesitating, and it made him angry. While the lady captain acted as necessary, Aaron couldn't do the same. It took our hero a while to understand that he wasn't angry at all. He was jealous of her. Soon enough, the trio is back on the road again. They have their own carriage this time. With Kubaru in charge of the reins, Aaron continued to practice his mental training while Lulu watched over him. The cat looks at him intently as Aaron sweats while sitting still. In his mind, he's still trying to mold the steel in his heart according to his liking. But the steel didn't change much so far, even when Aaron used the fire to torch it. Moreover, the fire isn't as intense as before, but our hero refused to give up and continued hammering the steel. Just like that, Aaron spent the day doing his mental training, and now the sun has set, with Kubaru already done preparing dinner. As the orc opened the carriage door, Aaron greeted him and didn't notice that it was already dinner time. Kubaru asks him how his mental training has been progressing, and our hero admits that there isn't any significant progress yet, but he believes that his hard work will pay off. And that's when the orc noticed that the sorcerer cat was still out cold and tried calling out for Lulu, but Aaron thought his sorcery teacher was concentrating and won't wake up anytime soon. Hearing that, Kubaru can't help but question Lulu's methods, but Aaron quickly jumps to the cat's defense, explaining that each sorcerer has their own methods. Lulu's just happened to be this way. Since Lulu won't wake up soon, the two men decided to share a hearty meal, with Aaron impressed at Kubaru's cooking skills. Later at night, our hero picks up his sword again and practices his swordsmanship, leaving Kubaru impressed. Aaron has dedicated most of his time to training, not even wasting a single second as Kubaru looks on, thinking how he's such an upright man. Seeing Aaron work his butt off day and night just makes us slobs next to him. He's more put together than the rest of us. After their long days on the road, our trio finally reached a new town, with Kubaru explaining that they would arrive at Lathian sometime tomorrow. They checked into a nearby inn, with Lulu and Kubaru racing to get to the bathroom as Aaron made himself comfortable and sat on one of the tables. Just then, he heard a voice ordering a bottle of whiskey, while another nagged it, asking what was so good about the drink anyway. Aaron's ears perked up. He knows this voice. And as he turned to look, the first voice called out to the other one for always ordering food they can't finish. Our hero's eyes widened upon seeing two familiar heads, one red and the other blue, as they continued to bicker about food. Judith was just about to counter Brett's argument when she noticed Aaron sitting right next to them. She grabbed Brett's shoulder, facing the opposite direction, which is why he hadn't seen our hero yet. This time, Judith called Aaron by his name, as our hero stood up, happy to see her and Brett, while her two friends couldn't believe what they were seeing. Finally, the gang's back. Brett was just about to ask what he was doing here when Kubaru and Lulu appeared out of nowhere and placed themselves right between Aaron and the two. They were quick to square up, asking who they were and what they were trying to do with Aaron. The funny thing about all this is we know Aaron is more than capable of defending himself, but it's touching to see these two show such loyalty to Aaron. Judith was anything but intimidated, and she was shocked at Lulu, the talking cat. Kubaru still has his guard up as he looks at Brett and Judith warily, saying they're pretty strong. Exceptionally strong, Lulu adds. But before things could get worse, our hero stepped up and informed his two companions that these two in front of them were his friends and fellow trainees from Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy. Brett and Judith introduced themselves while Aaron told his friends that the two on his side were his masters, Kubaru, the fortune-teller orc, and Lulu, Aaron's sorcery master. The orc quickly apologized for acting the way they did, saying that they jumped to conclusions because of what they went through the past month, also known as almost getting mobbed by brothers turned demons and meeting Emit Crescencia and the boss battle that followed. Brett didn't question it, but Judith, on the other hand, was pleased to see Aaron got taller and instantly put our hero in a chokehold. Judith complained about how he didn't even contact them all this time, which made her and Brett think he was dead. As Lulu looks on worriedly, Brett asks our hero what happened, with Aaron answering that it's a long story. Judith then released Aaron from her headlock, saying they could just talk later, but for now, they needed to have a match first. They all went outside and decided on one of the training grounds that was no longer being used. The first to face off was Judith and Aaron, but the former questioned him where his sword was, thinking that maybe he changed his primary weapon after all these years. As usual, Aaron shocks his friends when he procures his sword out of thin air, thanks to sorcery. Brett exclaimed in shock, while Lulu only snickered upon seeing his reaction. Meanwhile, Judith just grinned and was glad that at least Aaron wasn't slacking off these past 5 years, and just as quickly, she launched her attack. Dashing toward our hero, Judith's powerful blade met Aaron's, and the blades let out a loud clang followed by an immense aura that resulted from the impact. Kubaru was shocked to see someone on par with Aaron, but our hero quickly showed Judith what he learned from his training. He squished his sword and did a turn, with the resulting swing blowing Judith away. As he regained his footing, Aaron dashed toward the other with great speed and swung at Judith, who had her guard up and noticed something out of Aaron's moves. Brett watched in awe, confirming that the techniques Aaron is using right now are his and Judith's. Seeing Aaron use their technique, Judith can't help but ask him what he has been up to for the last few years. But Aaron reminded her that she was the one who said that they'd talk later. Before anyone could switch their attacks, Brett came running and told Judith to move out of the way. He can't help but fight Aaron now, but the redhead refuses. Since it came to this, they all agreed to have a three-way fight. There was a flurry of clothes as blades clashed, sending sparks and their edges echoing with every swing they parried. Brett lunged at Aaron, slashing him swiftly, but our hero managed to dodge. And in turn, his blue-haired friend got into position for his signature thrust toward our hero. Aaron managed to block it, with Brett saying that he's pretty conflicted on what to feel, seeing how Aaron is using both his and Judith's techniques. The blue-haired royal questions Aaron about how he learned it all when he just saw it once, as our hero replies to tell him all about it later. A flurry of red appears on his side as Judith slashes Aaron, breaking off his and Brett's interaction. Judith then questions both guys about how they could run their mouths in the middle of the fight, with her executing the first move. Aaron leaped, avoiding Judith's strike, and he instantly did a vertical slash as he landed, but even with Judith's off-balanced state, she managed to deliver one blow after another at our hero. And here comes Brett, about to join the fray once again when he just about managed to avoid a big slash from Aaron. As the blue-haired swordsman found his footing, he noticed Aaron was already on his side, coming from a spin and ready to take a swing. Of course, Brett dodged that one, but you know what didn't? The ground. There was a loud crack as the platform from where they were fighting suffered the effects of Aaron's attack. Brett couldn't help but comment on how ridiculously strong Aaron was. On the other hand, Kubaru was left speechless at how the trio kept going on with their matches. Neither of them looked as if they were ready to give up. What's even more shocking for him is how they enjoyed all of this. The three went at it for a while until Judith told Aaron that he had gotten much better than she expected. Our hero returned the compliment, saying the pair are way more powerful than he imagined. Brett finally called it quits for the three of them, seeing how the two were still relentless. Judith was about to kick the fuss, but Brett only pointed out that the sun had already set and they needed to go. She eventually conceded, but not before asking Aaron to do one last thing, the vertical slash technique he did ages ago at the final evaluations. With a small smile, Aaron got into position and started meditating. It took him just a second to get in the zone, shocking both of his friends as he delivered the iconic vertical slash. Aaron almost split the stage in half with his technique, while his friends marveled at its destructive power. Brett even said it's even more refined than last time. Knowing Aaron, Judith remarked that our MC must have worked his butt off again. I mean, who wouldn't after seeing Aaron's? Even some of our subscribers said our hero inspired them to go to the gym. But Aaron, the humble lad he is, just told the two that it hadn't been long since he could better the move like this. As the group made their way back to the inn, Brett started to fill in our hero on what he missed, saying that he went back to the academy. Aaron told him that he already knew since Lance and Sir Ian informed him, and hearing this, Brett questioned him if our MC had gone back to the academy. Meanwhile, on Judith's end, Lulu started walking side by side with Judith and praised the female swordsman for her strength back there. But Judith was every bit uncomfortable with Lulu near her, and our resident mascot was oblivious to all of this. Still, Lulu presented Judith with a shiny red jewel, the same color as her hair, but Judith only backed away as our furry little friend offered her more of those jewels. Brett started to call her off, surprised that she was saying no to stuff like this, and in reply, Judith answered in hushed tones that black cats are bad luck, thinking she might get cursed. But our poor Lulu heard all of this, and the sorcerer cat sat teary-eyed with drooping ears before Lulu ran crying to Aaron's arms. Later that night, the three former trainees sat together at the table, with Kubaru and Lulu giving them space to catch up. Brett praised how both are good people, well, orc and cat, as Judith immediately asked Aaron what happened to him after getting back from the academy. Aaron sat contemplating what to tell them before he decided to open up about where it all began, before he stepped foot in the academy when he started having recurring dreams about the old man. It took a while for Aaron to tell them everything, right up to the part where Sir Ian encouraged him to leave the academy and set out on a journey. The two were quiet after hearing all this while our hero grew anxious at how he probably sounded so ridiculous right now, but Judith just told him that it must have been tough. Aaron was surprised at her comment, but the red-haired girl continued, saying she was pissed off at Aaron when she first heard his story. After all, Judith believed she was the strongest person in the academy, but looking back, she admits that it's absurd to think of it that way, especially since Aaron was there. She also told him that she felt cheated at first because our hero was there, led by some other person's will who also happens to help him. But she realized that Aaron worked twice as hard just to overcome the man in his dreams. Our hero did not expect to gain empathy from Judith, but cheered him on and acknowledged the hard work he had done all this time, that Aaron could only grit his teeth to hold back his emotions. As the two were having a moment, it got broken when Brett commented that he trained Judith, so she's now the decent person she is. And in line with that, Aaron should be grateful since it was no easy task for the blue-haired noble. Upon hearing this, the two started going at it once again while Aaron just looked at it fondly. He even noticed that Brett became brighter than back then. Speaking of Brett, he asked our hero if he wants to travel together since he's on a personal journey right now, with Judith seconding the motion. This suggestion took aback our hero. Sure, he didn't mind, but he started to worry if these two would get along with Kubaru and Lulu. Fast forward to a couple of drinks later, the fortune teller orc is now besties with Brett, sharing a fondness for alcohol. In fact, Brett's pretty happy that now he's got a drinking buddy since Judith was such a lightweight. Agitated at what Brett said, the redhead suggested a match to settle it, but Brett just tried to humor her off. And after a few more hours, it's now Judith's turn to sob, apologizing profusely to Lulu for how she called our mascot the bringer of bad luck. This time, it's Lulu trying hard to get away from Judith's hold. The sorcerer cat struggled to break free since she was too strong, so Lulu ended up asking Aaron for help. Our hero looked at them all fondly, breathing a sigh of relief since he was worried for nothing. They all got along just fine. And now, they are 5, plus 2 horses. The next day, the gang set out with no specific destination in mind. Brett and Judith were shocked when they heard that the trio was going to Lathian and told them they shouldn't bother going there at all. It was the worst, at least according to both of them. Curious to know why they would say something like that, Aaron questioned the two, and Judith answered it was because no one wanted to spar with them. She recalled how not only the swordsmanship academies refused to welcome them, even the famous swordsmen were too stuck up and refused to meet them. Hearing all this, Kubaru asked if the two presented their certification cards that prove they were from Chronos Swordsmanship Academy's 27th cohort, to which Judith answered in the affirmative. Well, there you have it, the reason why the other swordsmen are not entertaining them. Kubaru points out that everybody pretty much calls them the Golden Cohort because of their stellar reputation. So if anyone ever went up against them and lost, that would hurt any academy's and swordsman's pride. Judith got more annoyed, but Lulu had already hopped onto Aaron's head, asking where he wanted to go next, but even our hero was not sure where to go. Since they're all undecided, Brett suggested the city of Partisan, an up-and-coming spot where many swordsmen and free folk gather, which the group gladly agreed upon instantly. The gang continued to travel for a week, and during that time, they managed to bond and get to know each other better. Kubaru still prepares the food, and he gained a new fan of his cooking in the form of Brett. Meanwhile, Judith is the same as ever, eager to train and invited our hero for a little after-lunch exercise. The more they fought, the more Aaron got used to Judith's attack pattern, but the latter didn't seem too worried that our hero got the hang of it. To Aaron's shock, Judith's blade started to glow a bright red color that Kubaru was surprised to see, asking if it was an aura sword. But Brett was quick to explain that she was just emitting a little aura, which is different from a swordmaster's aura sword. As Aaron and Judith continued to clash swords, Brett further explained that his companion was still practicing using it, which is why it couldn't take a specific form yet. But you gotta admit though, it does put pressure on the opponent. While the two were busy sparring, Brett thought that he had just managed to understand the nature of aura swords. Then there's Aaron, who had already mastered two forms of aura application, manifestation and focus. This notion makes Brett believe that his blonde friend is the one most likely to become a swordmaster out of the three of them. I think that's pretty obvious. He's our main character after all. But first, you gotta be humbled a few more times like now. Judith and Aaron's fight ended with our hero admitting defeat, much to the redhead's joy. That's 9-1, giving her a 90% win rate. As he stood panting to catch his breath, our hero couldn't help but think he was the weakest one out of them all, even if he expected it to some extent. It's hard to beat these two, after all, he thought. But if Aaron's this weak, then are we worms or something? But Aaron's reverie got cut off when Brett called off the physical fight. Instead, he asked them to fight with words now. Our hero was confused for a sec, but in no time, Brett started to break down and discuss the events of his second sparring day with Judith. He explained how she quickly dodged to the side as he changed his attack first, which also made her realize this. Moreover, the blue-haired noble pointed out that Judith has a habit of dodging to the side and attacking forward when she gets flustered, and it's becoming a frequent attack pattern now. The other admitted and said she would be mindful of her habits from then on, but our hero could only listen to them, sword still in hand. Brett then turned to him, asking what he thought of their sword discussion, where they analyzed and discussed their swordsmanship while going over their last match. Since it's his first time seeing the two talk about this, our hero told Brett that he'd probably sit this one out and listen to them for today. Once again, Aaron thought just how amazing his friends were and exclaimed that he was excited to get stronger, so he could join them in their discussion next time. Bless this manhwa for the excellent portrayal of healthy competition. Amen. Later that night, Kubaru asked Aaron if he was not having dinner, but our hero said he'd spend the night training and return by morning. Judith, who heard all this, decided to follow suit and train as well. She was determined not to let him get ahead of her too much. And since Judith has gone, Brett also stood up so that the fortune teller orc can't help but ask them their deal. The blue-haired noble explained that every time Aaron displays a considerable amount of conviction, he grows beyond belief, and his redhead companion knows this. So she trains hard so she will not be left behind. Brett then asks Kubaru if something like this has happened during their travels, and the orc answers with a smile that it did. Brett expected that much, and Kubaru could only laugh in confirmation. Outside, Aaron is busy practicing his vertical slash, but he's been thinking that what Sir Ian said was correct. There's no point in just trying to copy someone. As he continues to swing his sword, Aaron feels that he needs to decide on his swordsmanship's core. His basis is the old man in his dreams with the vertical slashes and the swordsmanship he learned at the academy with his large sword. With these two at the core and adding Brett and Judith's fighting techniques, our hero committed to perfecting his own swordsmanship style. True enough, by the next time they sparred, Judith emerged struggling and was pissed at how Aaron managed to get stronger once more. Brett is also on his knees, huffing for air, but unlike his companion, he has come to admit that the world is simply like that. He added that he felt the same when he first watched Ilia 5 years ago. Speaking of Ilia, we hope to see her so we can finally say the gang could be complete for real this time. Back to the current situation, Kubaru once again thought of how impressive Aaron was and how he quickly narrowed their gap. Then he noticed Judith, who grew frustrated at Aaron's speed development. Using his powers, the fortune teller orc sees the intense fire energy surrounding the resident redhead's body and notes that people like her hate to lose. Moreover, Kubaru said her next assignment would most likely be controlling that energy. Much to Kubaru's surprise, Judith became even more powerful just 2 days later, and Aaron couldn't help but defend against her attacks for dear life. Her attacks are much more tenacious, and it was checkmate for our hero in no time. Judith exclaimed with joy at how she managed to win over Eren this time, while Kubaru remarked that she picked that last move from our hero's fighting style. What's even more shocking for the orc is that she could only learn that move if she had the innate talent and tenacity to become stronger than everybody else. These kids are literally helping each other grow. As Judith relished in her victory, Eren could only praise his friend for pulling a move like that, and now the redhead was more than happy to head to Partisan to spar with other swordsmen. Unknown to them, Lulus quietly observed their progress from a nearby tree and remarked that this trio had no idea just how strong they were. Well, it's only a matter of time before they do, once they arrive in the city. In Partisan, Judith was shocked to see the number of swordsmen walking about in this emerging city of the West, while Kubaru commented that it's just like a mercenary town. The orc and Lulu proceeded to head to the inn while the trio went out to Harem's Swordsmanship Academy in the hopes of finding good game. Before he knocked on the door, Brett told his friends they must keep their identities as Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy trainees. As soon as he knocked, a tall man with cropped hair answered their call, with Brett declaring their intent to spar with the swordsman in their academy. At first, the man only looked at them, seeing how they were all young, and was about to ask which school they came from when a voice from inside asked what was happening. The man who greeted the three, Sir Kent, replied to the voice inside that they were guests seeking a duel. The same voice ushered them in, and the three were greeted by a man with blonde hair tied in a ponytail. He introduced himself as Headmaster Harem, while the trio quickly returned the gesture. The older man thought these three were no ordinary youngsters, so he took upon himself to handle this one from Instructor Kent. The headmaster gave them a tour of the institution, pointing out that the trainees were using the first floor and also verifying if these three came to the academy to duel. He ushered them to his office if they were, making Brett question who their opponent would be. The headmaster proposed with a smile that he would fight them, much to Instructor Kent's shock and Judith's delight. At the office, the headmaster asked which of the three would like to go first, and to their surprise, Eren stepped up to the challenge first. Of course, he had to ask if it was okay with his friends first. See, he's really a cinnamon roll. Too good for this world. Brett said that it was unexpected of Eren, but the two let him have this one. Before they get started, Headmaster Harem urges the use of wooden swords so as not to hurt anybody, which our hero quickly obliges to. With the swordsmen standing far apart, the duel commenced at the signal, with the headmaster making the first move and sprinting toward our hero. Headmaster Harem thought he'd look at how strong Eren was when our hero whacked the headmaster's head in one fell swoop. So much for the boss battle. Well, that was embarrassing, to say the least. The headmaster instantly fell as Eren bonked him, with Instructor Kent running to help him, leaving Eren confused at the unexpected turn of events. Judith was horrified, exclaiming that Eren had killed him, but our hero turned to her in panic, saying he didn't as Instructor Kent shook the headmaster. Obviously, the other two didn't fight the headmaster, so they all just sat at the headmaster's office. Eren apologized again, but the headmaster, now sporting a bandaged head, told our hero he shouldn't be sorry since it was a fair fight. With a smile, Headmaster Harem asked if they were from an academy, but none of them answered immediately. As the group's diplomat, Brett responded that they were all from Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy, to which the headmaster asked if they were from the 27th cohort, also known as the rumored Golden Cohort, to which the blue-haired noble indirectly answered yes. Hearing that they came from Chrono made a lot of sense to the headmaster, who said it was the only place that could produce talents like them. Their reputation precedes them since Headmaster Harem has heard about them, but he had no idea they would be this strong. He thought the three were just playing with him. Eren was appalled when the headmaster said this, but thankfully, the older man was good-natured enough to understand that it wasn't the case and believed that the trio was genuinely looking to find a good sport. Since that's out of the way, Headmaster Harem finally addressed the elephant in the room. These three had no idea how strong they were. To explain further, he asked them what level swordsmen usually aim for. For most people, they would answer Swordmaster, but in the case of swordsmen, they would most likely answer that they wish to attain the expert level. Realistically speaking, it's the highest level swordsman of ambiguous talent, background, and effort can reach. But Headmaster Harem said that the expert level might seem too much of a title for others and added that all the head teachers in the academy are at expert levels. That being said, he told the trio that no headmasters in the academy could handle their abilities. At best, 4 or 5 of them in the institution could fight the trio, but eventually, Eren and his friends would win. After saying this, the headmaster told them they should be proud, but Judith did the opposite. She sighed gloomily, Seeing Judith's reaction brought a grin to the headmaster's face, so he told them that one person in the partisan was stronger than the three of them. At the mention of this, Judith slammed her hands on his table, eager to know just how strong this person was and if they were a master. The headmaster was taken aback by her intense reaction and said this person wasn't a master. Still, he's more famous than the other masters, taking into consideration that there are 100 publicly known masters to date and that this person is the next strongest in line. This person is none other than Jet Frost, the 101st strongest swordsman. And our favorite trio just came in the nick of time since Jet Frost will be hosting training duels in his residence 2 days from now. But of the three, it's Judith who is the most excited of all and proclaims that they must challenge him. 2 days later, the trio made their way to Jet Frost's manor and were surprised at the sheer number of the crowd waiting at his front door. Aaron asked if there was a chance they could take part in today's training, while the headmaster just sighed in frustration since a lot of people also came today. Moreover, he said that if Jet Frost just came out and fought every time he was challenged, these swordsmen wouldn't flock to his home like this. The three were surprised at the headmaster's sudden appearance. Judith asked him what he was doing there, but he didn't answer directly. Instead, the older man told them that Jet Frost was way more skilled than he was and that dueling with him helps him out a lot. It was Brett's turn to ask him if he knew Jet Frost, and that's when the headmaster revealed that the esteemed swordsman was an old friend of his. Hearing this, Brett couldn't help but follow up that if he's friends with Jet, can't he just ask the other to duel with him anytime? Headmaster Harem said he tried and got rejected when he did. Then suddenly, Jet Frost's butler, a kind-looking old man named Glenn, came out to greet the swordsmen gathered outside. Seeing that a lot of people came today as well, he told them that only those who passed the test were allowed to duel with his master. As he said this, Glenn presented the swordsman with a scale, explaining that if they scored over 5,000 points, then they passed. Aaron was surprised to see that it was a magical scale, with the headmaster asked if he had tried one before, to which our hero answered yes. Aaron also added that he scored around 10,000 points, to which the older man could only look at him warily. It's not easy to get such a high score like that. One by one, the swordsmen started testing their strength on the scale. Some passed while others failed, and then it was Headmaster Harem's turn. The butler was pleased to see him again. He passed, just like the others, scoring 12,081 points and saying that one learns a few tricks once one gets the hang of the scale. Finally, it was our hero's turn to hit the scale. As he procured his sword, Glenn asked if it was a magic sword, but Aaron explained that it had no other characteristics besides being a hard sword. To avoid any issues, Glenn prepared a similar sword that Aaron will use. As soon as he was handed the sword, our MC slammed the scale pretty hard that Glenn couldn't believe the numbers, including Headmaster Harem. Our hero got a whopping 18,817 points. Then, it was Judith and Brett's turn to hit the scale. She got 16,581 points while Brett scored 16,601, making them both passers. Brett approached Aaron, telling him that even he won't let them win in terms of raw power, but our hero just said to him that their scores weren't that far off. Sure, Aaron, that's more than 2,000 points in difference. Meanwhile, Judith has been pretty quiet that Brett couldn't help but tease her, saying he should have just let the redhead beat him. This incited a strong reaction from Judith, who reasoned that she was just off-center, which is why her score is a little lower. But since the test is done, Aaron urges his friends to gather with the rest of the group. As he and Brett walked ahead, Judith was brooding about how she was the weakest one again out of the three of them. Back to the situation at hand, Glenn declared that since a lot of swordsmen passed, there would be a 3 versus 1 duel, asking the passers to form groups of 3. Would you look at that? It's as if this was made for our trio. As we all know, they're pretty strong, so it didn't take long before our heroes smoked out the weak competition. Surprisingly, Headmaster Harem made it to the final leg too. Glenn tells the headmaster that Jet Frost will fight him one-on-one, with the latter saying that now he gets the special treatment as his friend. So this leaves our trio as the final challengers. But just before the headmaster went off to face him, Brett had an idea which he whispered to the older man's ear. The blue-haired noble left it to the headmaster, who only told him not to worry and proceeded to go inside. But just like that, his fight with Jet Frost didn't last that long, and the headmaster found himself staring intently at Jet Frost's blade. He admitted that he's just no match to Jet Frost, with the latter stating the obvious. Still, the headmaster thanked his friend since he learned a lot, but that was a given since Jet Frost said he was guiding the duel. Since they're done, Harem tells his friend that he only has one last team left to fight, while the white-haired swordsman says he is eager to finish it to get some rest. And that's when Harem told the other that Eren's team proposed a bet which perked Jet Frost's interest. Since they're a team of young swordsmen, Harem tells his friend that the trio is prepared to do anything Jet Frost wants in a month if he wins. But on the other hand, if he loses, he'd have to train them individually for a month. The white-haired swordsman couldn't help but laugh at the proposal, but at the same time, he found it interesting and had already planned to make them clean his mansion. At this, Harem smirked, happy to see that his friend fell for it. And then he finally saw the three, which made Jet Frost fidget from where he stood and asked his butler why didn't he tell him that the trio were experts. Glenn told his master that he didn't inform him of this crucial information since Harem revealed to the butler that Jet Frost drank his wine. The white-haired swordsman tried to reason out that there wasn't even any left, and now he was left with this pickle. Hell have no fury to a man whose wine got stolen. Jet didn't have time to argue since the three already introduced themselves and were already positioned to start the fight. As if that wasn't enough pressure, they all emitted their own aura and said they looked forward to his guidance. Wait, did they just say Chronos Swordsmanship Academy's 27th cohort? The rumored golden cohort? Before Jet Frost could decide whether he made the right decision, he heard the three call out the start of the duel. And before he realized it, Eren was already in front of him about delivering a swing had he not raised his sword to counter it. As their swords clashed, a powerful impact made the older man question how our hero could be that strong. Jet Frost pushed back with equal force, fending off Eren's attack with the old man slashing our hero. But this time, there was another attack forcing open Jet Frost's guard. It was Brett's quick slash, as Eren ready to deliver a blow right behind the blue-haired noble. As he was about to counter, he felt someone was right behind him, with Judith almost slashing him. But the older man was quick on his feet and dashed in the opposite direction, creating some distance between them. As he did this, the older man looked back and thought that the trio had great teamwork and needed to turn this into a one-on-one duel, but he didn't get to finish that thought as he saw someone's blade almost make contact with his face. He leaned back just in time, or else he might have lost half his head, but just as he was about to get into position, he already saw Eren was just about to cut him down. Jet Frost, less his reflexes, used his feet to propel his body out of Eren's attack zone, just in time for Brett to catch him off balance. The older man spun around the noble swordsman and thought these kids were not giving him time to think. And then, there was a loud clash of blades as Glenn watched in awe that his master had a hard time dealing with them, while Harem looked on with a grin, clearly enjoying the show, and said that it was worth making a bet after all. This was getting a little too intense for Jet Frost's liking. And as the older man gritted his teeth, he really thought that he might end up teaching these three if it continued like this. With the mere thought of teaching them, Jet Frost found renewed vigor and emitted an intense aura that even the trio felt instantly. The former Chrono trainees stopped dead in their tracks as Jet continued emitting his aura, which only grew intense by the moment. He stopped and acknowledged the trio's strength, and now decided to return the favor and fight seriously. And based on his looks alone, things are about to go down hard. Brett struggled with Jet's heavy aura, making it harder for the younger swordsman to move since it seemed he was about to be cut by the white-haired swordsman's aura alone. But Judith didn't let the pressure get to her and charged directly at the older man. In an unexpected move, Jet threw his sword at her, which made the redhead block his attack. Then he was gone. Brett was still looking at where he last saw the older man, thinking that he had magically disappeared, when he noticed at the last minute that Jet was right above him. And that's not all, the older man had another blade with him, as Jet unsheathed his other sword from behind. The blue-haired noble hesitated since he couldn't read the older man's next move, whether it would be a slash or a thrust, but Brett thought that he needed to block his attack. But the older man used Brett's hesitation against him and emitted a sinister aura this time, rendering the noble immobile in fear, which Jet used so he could send a thrust toward the younger man. Or not. Jet just tapped the tip of his blade to Brett's chest. That's one down. As he raised his blade, Jet saw Eren from the reflection, who tried to sneak up behind him. But the older man kicked our hero so hard he flew in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, Judith lunged toward him, but the older man was pretty nimble. He maneuvered his body out of Judith's way, jumped, landed right behind her, and slid his blade just a few inches away from her neck. So that's two. Now, only Eren is left. But before he moved on to Eren, Jet called out their blue-haired friend, commending him for his stable swordsmanship. Even the older man was pretty impressed with his technique, seeing that it's rather developed for his age, while he was quick to point out that Brett lacked insight, or maybe the younger swordsman was just too cautious. Brett reasoned out that there was no way he could avoid an attack like that, but the older man told him that he only put enough force on his attack, at least just enough that Brett could handle it, while adding that he was pretty committed to his role in these guidance duels. Plus, he also said that the blue-haired noble backed away as a result of losing composure. Jet then turns his attention to Judith, saying her attacks are pretty simple, which she got confused about. To elaborate further, he asked her if she forgot how to thrust, pointing out that she only used slashing techniques, and by doing so, Jet said that she's not using her sword to its full potential. Since he's done pointing out the flaws in the pair's technique, Jet turns to Eren, saying he'll have more fun with him since he's the last one. And since he's feeling gracious, Jet told Eren that he could attack first, noting that Eren's attacks are pretty heavy. But wait, there's more. He even told Eren to come in with his full power. Upon hearing this, Brett and Judith started to laugh wholeheartedly, while Harem could only look at the two strangely, wondering what they were laughing at. Eren got a little worried with Jet's suggestion, saying that he may end up damaging the place, but the older man just smiled and said it's a risk that he needs to take when it comes to a duel. This older man is in for a treat, since Jet gave him the okay. Eren suddenly got into the zone and started meditating with his usual stance. Jet already saw the glowing aura emanating from the younger man's body until it suddenly went ablaze. He questioned himself about this immense aura and was surprised to see Eren controlling it. Meanwhile, Eren thought that Jet was far too strong, seeing how he managed to overpower the three without even tapping his full power, so if he'll use this opportunity, he'd be trained by him. As Eren thought this, the blaze from his aura got more intense, thinking he won't pass this chance up. With that, Eren raised his sword, his golden aura crackling around him, and was about to deliver the vertical slash when Jet yelled stop. Our hero caught himself before his blade struck the floor as the older man admitted defeat and asked Eren to put his sword down. It's good to know that our man Jet finally got some sense into him and prioritized the safety of his home. I mean, God knows what state his manor will be in once Eren unleashed that vertical slash attack. Since Jet admitted his loss, the three were quick to line up with shining eyes and told him that they looked forward to his guidance since he had no choice but to keep his end of the deal. The next day, Jet led them to one of the training rooms in his residence, complete with a large transmutation circle inscribed on the floor, telling the trio that this will serve as their training grounds for the next month. As he said this, the older man activated something on the wall via sorcery, which instantly shifted the gravity in the room, making it heavier. Ah, the good old gravity room circa Dragon Ball. The trio were surprised at this change of atmosphere. Body's heavier than normal, but Jet said that a healthy body makes for better aura efficiency. Moreover, overcoming challenges like these could also increase their aura, at least according to Jet. For their first task, Jet had them move all the rocks placed on the right side to the left, which they can accomplish until noon. He warns them that if they can't even complete at least that much, then they lack the willpower, which leads to their disqualification. Our heroes quickly got into it, and it wasn't until 3 hours later when Jet decided to check on them. Surely, they're done by now, right? What he didn't expect is to see the three still reloading the rocks to the opposite end. Jet didn't think that the task he had for them would be that hard until Glenn appeared, and informed him that this is their third time moving those rocks. This took the swordsman by surprise as Glenn explained that the trio already finished it before 11 o'clock, but since they don't like keeping still, they decided to keep moving it to keep the momentum. Annoyed at how the three are being carried away, Jet said that he'll just see how long they'll last. On the second day, the three were made to do crunches with a log placed on their bent knees for added difficulty, and they were also made to run lapses while pulling weights. Out of the three, Judith is starting to look worse for wear that even Jet started to notice it as well, though he didn't comment on it. At night, as Eren lays in bed, Lulu questions our hero if they're still doing stamina training even now. The sorcerer Cat commented that it has already been a week and asked him if their guide has no plans of dueling with them, but Eren just told Lulu that Jet has a plan. Hearing this, Lulu remarked that he was such a joke, considering he's the 101st strongest swordsman. At the mention of his title, Eren thought being called the 101st strongest swordsman didn't appeal to him in all honesty. Back in Jet Frost's manor, the white-haired swordsman sat silently while mulling over his three students. He thought that they weren't built on talent alone, as seen in their eyes. He took a sip of his wine and remembered his past self since it was the same case for him. He had the same fire in his eyes back in his younger years. The next day, Jet told the trio that he would start to guide them based on their individual needs, starting with Eren. To get a better grasp of our hero's fighting tactics, the teacher and students sparred to get an assessment. As soon as they finished exchanging blows, Jet told Eren that he was doing great and the thing he should work on is his passiveness. To further elaborate, the older man pointed out that our hero is stuck on the idea that he's slower than his opponents, so someone who's light on their feet like Judith will most likely string around Eren throughout the duel. Hearing this, Eren pointed out that he's really much slower than Judith, but Jet showed him a technique utilizing his power. The older man explained that just because he's slower or less coordinated means that he should act passively. What he needs to do is expand his territory and occupy more space. As he said this, Jet unleashed his aura, growing bigger as he approached Eren. He showed Eren to continue expanding his space bit by bit to work to his advantage, and once it has become hard for his opponent to run away or counterattack, then that's proof that they're forced into a corner. Since Jet not only explained but demonstrated his advice, Eren understood his advice better and then proceeded to teach the other two. The training went on, and this time, Jet is now observing them with so much intent, especially the sparring between Eren and Judith. Our hero noticed that his friend's overworking herself again, but the hard-headed Judith just told him not to treat her like she's some weakling, and that she's just getting started. The redhead believes that she'll win this time, but unbeknownst to her, Jet already had a different thing in mind. This time, the older man intervened and asked Judith to come with him, telling her that he has another piece of advice she should follow. The instructor tells his student to put down her sword and come meet him in his chambers. As for Eren and Brett, he urged the two to take their lunch and eat first, since his chat with Judith may take a while. So the two went ahead and were peacefully having their lunch when they heard Judith's voice echo through the dining hall. The two were startled, and as they looked over in the direction of Jet's chambers, Judith came out stomping and fuming with rage. Brett asked her where she was going, but she just snapped at Brett. Curious to know what happened, the two men went to Jet's room and asked what they talked about. The older man was pouring himself a drink as Brett and Eren waited for his answer, but he took his time. Day drinking during lunchtime? He's just my kind of guy. Anyway, back to the story. Jet revealed that he gets reminded of his younger days whenever he looks at the three of them. Times when he was happy just by holding a sword. He related to the two how he became an expert at a young age, and soon enough, people started calling him as the next in line to become a swordmaster. But reality was much harsher, and Jet found out the road to becoming a swordmaster is full of struggles. He faced a lot of opponents across the continent who were much stronger than him, and he also got compared to a lot of them, which led to more frustration on his part. Until finally, Jet caved into the pressure that he could no longer focus on his swordsmanship. Talking about this now, the comparisons, competitions, as well as the desire to win were too much, and now, Jet thought that if he just had better control and moderated that fiery emotion. Unfortunately, in the world of swordsmanship, a thing called moderation doesn't apply to competitions. Plus, seeing geniuses like Brett and Eren would only make the feeling of impatience grow stronger. He told them all this because he advised Judith to break away from the competition and comparison mindset. Instead, he told her that she should try to focus on why she picked up swordsmanship in the first place. But saying those might have the opposite effect on her, which is why she stormed out of his chambers earlier. But as soon as he said this, there was a rattle on the door, with the two turning to see who it was, Judith. Compared to earlier, Judith has a calmer demeanor now and apologized to Jet for what she did. Moreover, she knows that he was not trying to make her feel bad and admitted that her friends are not only better than her, but that she has also been overworking to catch up to them. But Judith didn't pick up the sword just for fun. She did it to survive. She explains to Jet that for her, competition and the results of a duel are all tied to her survival. And the very reason she's wielding the sword today is because of competition. So if it entails overworking herself over and over again to rise above and be better than her competitors, then so be it. To hell with overworking. Judith says that she doesn't care about the pain she suffers in the process since she's confident that she can overcome those as well. As Judith said this, the fire in her heart burned brighter and Jet could only do was stare. At a girl. Just like that, their month-long training under Jet Frost came to an end after a week. Eren thanked the older man for taking them under his wing, to which the latter only asked where they plan to go next. Brett said that they have no idea, and upon hearing that, Jet suggested that they should check out the Land of Attestment. It's one of the 5 kingdoms of the West, which is also known as the Pride of the Kalyar Kingdom, known for its amazing battle arena. Moreover, Jet said that the sudden appearance of a certain swordsman made the battles in the area grow in number. And to make more things interesting, the older man told them they should know who the swordsman is since she was also from the 27th cohort. At this, Eren perked up as Jet revealed that the current champion of the Land of Attestment is Ilia. Finally, we're getting the band back together, or are we? Back in the carriage, Aaron thought that of Ilia, with Judith saying that she must have gotten even stronger now. On the other hand, Rhett said that maybe Ilia must have overcome what happened back then. At the mention of this, Judith asked him what he was talking about, and that's when the blue-haired noble revealed that Carl Lindsay, the crown prince of the Lindsay family, disappeared without a trace, much to Aaron's shock. According to Brett, when Ilia got home after the final evaluation, her older brother had already gone missing. What's peculiar about his case is the fact that he disappeared without a trace, as if whisked away by sorcery. But Yuna family's resident magician could find no traces of him. This left Ilia feeling frustrated, but the family continued to look for him, but no progress was made in the next 3 months that followed. Because of this, rumors started to spread that Carl may be dead, in which all the rivaling families who had always been jealous of the Lindsays started making ill remarks about the family's future. Aaron was speechless and worried for Ilia. He had no idea she went through something like that, but Brett assured them that their co-training must be fine now since she became the champion of the land of Attestment after all. She wouldn't earn that title if she let what they said get to her. What's more, Brett said this reunion would make up for his loss to her during a final evaluation, which Judith quickly agreed to. In no time, their band reached Eisenmarkt, Kallier Kingdom's battle city. Lulu was excited to see this many people, while Aaron quickly noticed that it seems to be populated by the affluent. But then again, Lulu points out that there are also many beggars on the streets, but Kubaru just said that's the way it is. So, Eisenmarkt. There are many battle arenas in the place apart from the land of Attestment, which makes betting and gambling popular. Just then, a merchant sprung up on the group, seeing that they seemed to be interested in duels. Aaron was just about to explain, but the man talked over him, saying that he has something that's desired by many. 4 tickets to champion battle at the land of Attestment happening at 4 p.m. today. So of course our hero had to buy these. Their group made their way inside the humongous arena, way bigger than any of the arenas they'd ever been to. Judith is pretty happy to see how huge the place was and the fact that it's filled with people. Her seatmates started making small talk, with one of them asking who they placed their bet on. The man answered that his bet was Ilia, for obvious reasons, and because not only is she the youngest champion in history, but she also became a sword master at 18. Judith turned to the man upon hearing what he said, but soon enough, her attention shifted to the main stage as the announcer's voice welcomed them into the arena. For today's battle, the announcer introduced the challenger, who is the second in rank among all the swordsmen at king level, Cedric Cooper. For his opponent, he excitedly announced the undefeated swordsman, undeniable talent, youngest champion ever, and the swordmaster, Ilia Lindsay. As she stepped onto the stage, Ilia drew her sword that was already surrounded by a certain force that Brett and Judith made no mistake about it, an aura sword. Aaron was also shocked but said nothing, as we finally saw Ilia walk into the stage, making the crowd go wild. And hot damn, she's prettier than ever too. With both swordsmen already in position, Ilia made the first move, and in a split second, she was already in front of Cedric. This caught the latter off guard, but he had to move fast because Ilia unleashed a barrage of attacks that left him defending his very life, thinking that he can barely dodge her attacks. Just then, Ilia prepared for a stronger attack, hitting Cedric in the chest and blowing him to the other part of the stage. Lucky for him, he had his sword up when she did that, but his sword is already chipped and started to crack. He thought that if he took one more blow from that aura sword, then his blade will be destroyed for sure. Moreover, he can't let this duel end without landing at least one attack. So he decided to take offense and was about to thrust his blade when Ilia spun out of his attack's range and slashed his sword, breaking it in half. Just like that, it was over in less than a minute, with Ilia already walking away as she's once again declared as the champion. Kubaru couldn't believe her, since this wasn't even a challenge, and asked the trio if she was really a trainee like them. All 3 were speechless, but Kubaru especially noticed that Aaron doesn't look too good. Our hero just stood up and told the orc he'll go for a little walk, while Kubaru told him that he'll wait for him at the inn. Is Aaron overwhelmed by her power? Now that he's out of the arena, Aaron can't help but wonder what was that all about and if he was just imagining things. But no, he was sure he sensed it clearly. Dark demon-like energy coming from Ilia. So Aaron thought he has to meet her as soon as possible. But first, he needed to gather information and remember that Kubaru used to get information from pubs, which is why he made his way to Eisen Pub. As soon as he stepped in, all eyes were staring intently at him, but our hero didn't care and went straight to the bartender. He greeted him and asked for some information, but the bartender warned Aaron that this was no ordinary pub and urged our hero to leave if he doesn't want any trouble. But Aaron said that he'll compensate him for his troubles, although not by a lot. As the bartender continued to wipe glasses, not even looking at him. Aaron asked the older man where he needs to go if he wants to meet the champion of the land of the Testament, Ilia, which shocked the older man and drew the attention of another. The other dude, a thug you don't want to meet alone at night, told Aaron that he can answer his question but only if our hero agrees to bet with him and win. Aaron asked what bet is he proposing, and the man answered that they'll take turns punching each other. Basically, whoever lasts longer is declared the winner, so if one of them gives up or faints, then they lose. He's asking our hero Aaron, who has 18,817 points on the power scale, in a hitting match. This is gonna be good. Aaron only narrowed his eyes, wondering if this is how the city operates, but agreed to what the man proposed. The two stood facing each other, with the thug asking Aaron if it was cool with our hero if he hits first, which Aaron agreed to. Without a word, he punched Aaron's face with all his might, which made our hero's face swing in the opposite direction, as the spectators looked on. Aaron wobbled a bit for being out of balance, but got praised for taking it well. Even the thug said that he'd be disappointed if it ended easily, saying that they should take their time and enjoy this. Aaron just replied that it was his turn, and boy, was he not prepared for what came next. Aaron hit him with so much force that not only did his cheek take the form of Aaron's fist, he flew hard and crashed to the other side of the room as Aaron only looked on. Maybe Aaron should add One Punch Man to his title too. So will our boy Aaron get to meet Ilia soon? And is their silver-haired friend really under the influence of a demon? Find out next time.